and go. Okay, hello, everybody. Welcome to another OFNTSC live Facebook video. My name is Chelsey Johnson, and I am the Communications Manager for the Ontario First Nations Technical Services Corporation. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to our third Facebook Live interview. Today, I will be joined by Bohdana Chiupka-Innes, who is currently enrolled in the Masters of Architecture program at Laurentian University. But before we get started, I would also like to introduce the organization that I work for. As I mentioned, I'm the Communications Manager for the Ontario First Nations Technical Services Corporation, or OFNTSC for short, as we like to call it. So here at OFNTSC, we provide technical advisory services to First Nations in Ontario. And this includes consulting to some extent, as well as providing training in our core service areas, which include emergency management preparedness, environment, engineering, fuel systems management, fire and safety, housing, infrastructure, operations and maintenance, and water and wastewater. As you can imagine, we do a lot, but we also go above and beyond just providing our core services. Because a large part of our mission involves supporting First Nations to meet the contemporary and future challenges associated with their paths to self-reliance and self-sufficiency, which includes ensuring that First Nations have knowledgeable technicians in their own communities who will continue this work into the future. So we do a number of things to promote technical careers for First Nations youth. For example, through the Technical Youth Career Outreach Project, we aim to inform First Nations students about the various technical careers that exist and how they can achieve success in these areas. We do this by showcasing successful First Nations role models who are currently studying or working in a technical career in the hope that it will inspire youth to follow a similar path. Another way we support and promote technical careers for youth is through our annual Student Achievement Awards. This year, OFNTSC gave out 5 monetary awards to Indigenous youth studying for a career in a technical field. So Bohdana was one out of the 25 applicants we've had, which is our highest application year yet. And she was awarded with the Jay Benedict Memorial Award, which goes to a student in a housing or architecture program. Bohdana grew up in Wawa, Ontario, but has spent a lot of time traveling back and forth to Moose Factory. She loves being outdoors, kayaking and fishing, as well as being creative with beading, wood making, and carving. In the future, Bohdana hopes to work with First Nations communities throughout Northern Ontario, specializing in Indigenous architecture. So today we'll be chatting with Bohdana, finding out more about her education journey, expected career path, and possibly some of the hurdles she's encountered on her way. And we'll also get her advice for First Nations youth who are considering a technical career. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Bohdana Chiupka-Innes. Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. So just to get us started off here, I guess my first question for you would be, what was life like growing up for you, and how or when did you decide you wanted to become an architect?
Oh, so my mom lives in Wawa. My dad lives in Moose Factory. So I've been I live in the north, right? So I'm always in the bush, and I've been traveling back and forth between the communities like my entire life, just go visit family, back and family. But it was really what I wanted to do as like career-wise. I didn't know until I got into maybe my last year of high school. And then I was like, okay, I want to do architecture. And so I did actually architecture technologist at Humber College first, did a 3-year program there, and then went into university. And then when I was in university, I really got to understand what Indigenous architecture was.
That's awesome. So can you explain, as you said, what Indigenous architecture is? Like, I think we all kind of have a general sense about architecture in general, but specifically like Indigenous architecture, how is that different, and what is it really?
Okay, so in my perspective, what Indigenous architecture is, it's create, like designing a building with our traditions. Like, so when we need like certain uses, like just say for smudging, so we have more ventilation, it's the different areas in the room that speak to our culture and that we can actually walk into a building and use it efficiently, that we need to do for like either it's ceremonies, gatherings, anything like that, that it's designed with our traditions.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense. Do you learn in your program anything about like incorporating Indigenous architecture styles? Because I know we definitely have different, you know, types of housing all across like Turtle Island.
Yeah. So with designing, so it's really based on communities, right? Because each community is different. And so for our process is different compared to, I guess, the standard way of doing things. So we like to go into the communities, introduce ourselves, and then really get the community involved with the process. So we actually understand what they're looking for, what they actually like, their culture, because I find different communities are connected to different things, right? So that's what we really try to do. So I can probably show a couple examples if you would like. Okay.
Yeah.
So just like incorporating traditions, like what I've done throughout school and then working.
Perfect.
So I'll just share my screen. Okay, so this is actually one of my first buildings that I did at Third Line Studio. It's a multi-complex in Atikokan and Anishinaabe. And there they really wanted to incorporate the culture. So I designed it based on, I went to client meetings, worked with the clients who were from the community, and they wanted really the culture to come through. So I based it off the medicine wheel because it's more of like a treatment center and office space. So, and like you can see the facade. So little things about the facade I did because it was really we were trying to be within budget, right? So, so this is actually the front entrance here. So I did black for the medicine wheel, and then so this would be in the northern direction. And then in this image over here, this would actually be the eastern direction. So for our traditional buildings, we always enter through the east because that's just like, yeah. So that's just like one thing that we try to incorporate, or if we can, because that's very significant to us and how we design traditional buildings like a long time ago. So we enter through the east for like new beginnings, all the eastern elements. And then the actually color of the wood on this side would be yellow, because that's the color that Atikokan and Anishinaabe, their medicine wheel, connects to. Right. And then, so one of the buildings that, so this was just a feasibility study that I actually did. It was the Bambuaka Treatment Center. So they wanted to do a whole new building. So if you can see, this is the existing, how tiny it is. Mm-hmm. And they want to design, they want facility, like, I think it was like 15,000 square feet to 18,000 square feet. And originally they wanted a turtle, like based on Turtle Island and then the traditions of the turtle. So then I came, but it was too expensive. So I came with a proposal of doing this building based on the legend of the turtle. So we have like the main building here and kind of like the 4 outer buildings as the paws. Yeah. So like here I find, I can explain it a lot. So we have the eastern direction going in, and then we have all the components here, and then you actually are connected to the main gathering space in the middle. So they wanted a way, like a place to teaching. So I incorporated like the medicine wheel in the middle, but then also it was kind of like an amphitheater, like circle. So then either an elder or a teacher can teach in the middle, and then we all be surrounded because like we are in a circle because we teach in this the round. And then we have the water over here. I think it's the North Shore. And then we have traditional teaching areas, and then the dining, kitchen. I called it feasting because like that's what we do when we're in the kitchen and we're dining, we're feasting all together, and then or preparing, traditional preparing. And then So that's all connected together, like the living space. It's like really nice for like a gathering, like big gathering area. And then what I did with this one was, since it's a treatment center, so traditionally the males are supposed to be treated in the south and the females are supposed to be treated in the north. So I separated that. So males are in the south, females are in the north, just to get healed. And then one thing I learned through my process of talking to people and talking to people from the community, the people from who are working at the Bambuaka Treatment Center now, is that the West was for traditional medicine. So we have to prepare our medicine in the West, and the door has to be in the West direction. So that's what I did over here. So we have the traditional medicine preparing room, and then we can bring it in for all the people who are healing.
Oh my gosh. So you designed this. Was this a project for school, or you?
No, so this is a project. So for Third Line Studio, and like an architecture firm in Sudbury. So it's a feasibility study. So they came to us wanting to do a feasibility study to get funding for the building to actually be built. So I have a couple images. So this would be like maybe an image of like the central gathering area.
Wow, that's cool. So,
and then also,
oh my gosh. Go ahead. Sorry.
Another factor is having light come in from the sky, connecting through all the access.
So this is something that I feel like a non-Indigenous architect, like these are just concepts that are kind of like inherently built within the culture that I find, me personally feel like a non-Indigenous person wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Would you like agree with that, or?
I would personally agree with that, because they don't, they need to make sure that they know our traditions, and then they know our lifestyle to be able to design like an Indigenous architecture building.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. So much thought going into this.
Right. Yeah. So like that's what I love to do, and it's just like it comes together. So I find like Indigenous when I'm designing with anything culturally related, it just flows. And this is just like an exterior render that I did up with a fireplace in the middle between the gathering area, and then also kind of proposed. So this would be a more traditional sweat lodge that they would build, but I just put a building there just to show.
Right. And so when I was doing some research, looking into the discussion we're going to have today, one of the things I came across was like architecture, Indigenous architecture being different, because it's something that is very functional, but at the same time, very like aesthetically beautiful. Like how you mentioned, like it was like that building kind of fits into the landscape and utilizes like the natural features, like the direction, the directions and that sort of thing. So do they talk about that in your program?
Yeah, so in my program, since our school is very, very new, I would say probably, I think it was the last like 6-7 years, since 2013, I think. They wanted to really incorporate what Indigenous architecture like, because this is where we come from, this is our land, and Indigenous people are the people who lived here before everybody. So right now we have David Fortin, who's the director of the architecture school. He's Métis. And then we have a Lady of Smoke working there as well. She's a female Indigenous architect who actually has her own firm. They both have their own firm. And then previously we had Patrick Stewart, and then he's actually out west right now. And then we had Jake Hazem, but he's out west also. So and then we have in a course in, I think, second year, called I forget what the name, but it was learning about vernacular Indigenous architecture and all the Indigenous architects and what they're doing. So they're teaching us how we should be doing and designing the building properly.
Right. So did you have any Indigenous role models growing up? Like the people that you just mentioned, did you know of them when you were growing up, and like, were you kind of like, wow, I want to do what they're doing, or who were your role models?
Yeah, see, I didn't know about our group until I got into university. Okay. So like when I was in high school, I was just like, okay, I want to do architecture because I loved interior design. So I went into college. And then it was my third year that I actually decided I wanted to go into university. And then when I actually got into university is when I found out that there's people who are out there who are Indigenous, who are designing something for our culture. And so, and then we have probably, I'd say around 20 in Canada. So it's a very small number of us compared to over, I think it's like 10,000 registered architects in Canada. So I would say that right now, they would all be my role models, like Douglas Cardinal, he's the first. And then we have like Aledia Smoke, and then she has her own all-women architecture firm, and she wants to grow that in Ontario. And then like all the females too, are like my definite, yeah.
So that to me is like something that I think is really important for First Nations youth, is to have those role models, like to have somebody like you that they can look up to and say like, wow, I can do that too. Like if she did that, I can do that too. So I guess like what was I going to say? I think I was going to say something like, just in terms of like, oh, after this, so just in case for the people watching, after Bohdana, after you graduate from your master's program, you mentioned that you're going to be like one of those 20 or so registered Indigenous architects in Canada. What is that process like? Like, how do you actually become one of those registered Indigenous architects?
So right now, so I just have to do my 2 years master's, and it's like a 2-3 years internship working under an architect before I can actually get registered. So once you get registered, you'll go under the RAIC, and then they will, and then you just have to say you're Indigenous. I think that's how it goes. Okay. And then there's actually an Indigenous task force at the RAIC. Yeah.
Awesome.
So they're kind of like, we're pretty much like, we all know of each other, and then we're just, because we're such a small community, right?
Right.
And then, so they all have the same vision. We all have the same vision, and trying to help our communities and trying to pretty much like indigenize architecture based on like the Western way of building for our communities, right? Because that, I find like that is not, that hasn't been helping us. So we want to go towards more of like making sure our culture is more aware and like being, acknowledging it more in our communities.
Speaking of that vision, so you applied to our Student Achievement Awards this year, and you were the recipient of the Jay Benedict Memorial Award. So Jay Benedict was a former board member who just passed away this year. But he was really, really passionate about First Nations having, you know, adequate housing and like architecture and stuff like that. So one of the reasons we really liked your application was because of your plans for what you want to do after you graduate and how you kind of envision the future of Indigenous architecture in Ontario and in Canada. So can you just talk a little bit more about that? Like what do you see the landscape kind of looking like, you know, in 5, 10, 15 years?
I think it's going to be so different. Like I can speak from back home. We all have our own cookhouses, right? But 10 years ago, no one had those. And then eventually, so they're starting like our cultural and like traditional cooking is coming more and more aware. But in my future, I would have to say, like once I'm registered, I would, because me and my cousins actually talked about this, is like we really want to get an all Indigenous team. So that is like either you're an architecture, like an architect, like what I'm doing, or engineer. So it's either could be civil engineering, structural engineering, mechanical, electrical engineering, because that's all the fields like for drawing. That's all the fields that we need to make happen so that our buildings could be built. And then it goes into, okay, contractors. We need fieldsmen to build the buildings so it's like we need all, and then we need everybody on board, then we can make a team. So it could be Indigenous owned from start to the end. So I think that is what I would love to see in the future, because like we all have the same vision, and then we all want our communities to be better and to acknowledge our culture. So I think it's more trying to get the youth into these fields, because we need them in these fields. Because I am like, by the time I'm done, I might be like 30 to 40 30 to 40 registered architects in Canada. So it's like a very small number of us, but we also need more architects personally, and then also other youth to go into all the other technical fields. So then we actually can all come together and work together as one.
Right. You kind of need like, you know, I don't know if it's the right word, but like a one-stop shop where it's like, you know, First Nations can just go to one Indigenous organization for kind of like all of their like needs from like the beginning, like all the way through to the end. Because at OFNTSC, we do a lot of like, we have engineers. I'm not sure if we have like an actually like registered architect on our team. But we have engineers who work with communities to help them, you know, build or plan the designs for their water treatment plants and those sorts of things. But we're just like one step of that process. Kind of, we help them along a couple of different steps, but we're only really one part. Like we don't actually like build the buildings and stuff like that. We're not a construction company per se. So I kind of see what you're getting at, right? Like you kind of want to have it all in one place where people can go and do a project from start to finish.
Yeah, and then I think we need that too, because I find if I'm in client meetings, sometimes I'm the only Indigenous person in the room. Right. So I find sometimes that is hard because we're the people who are from the community who are speaking on their behalf.
Right.
So then it comes up to me, it's like, okay, how can I incorporate the culture? And I need like truly we need people from the community to speak up on that, to speak to that, because we want their opinion and their voice needs to be heard, and the way that the buildings should be designed in their own community. And then we can come in the picture and be like, and then architects and structural engineers, because we work with civil, mechanical, electrical. So those all are the team that makes the building, and then goes from there, all the contractors.
Right.
So we just kind of all come together.
That would be so cool. Like I love that idea. I think it's really, really good. And that kind of just leads into the next question, which is like, you kind of already answered, but like, why should First Nations youth pursue a technical career? Like whether it be architecture or, you know, something like engineering, architecture, mining, like a trade, like all of these things, I feel like we need more First Nations youth to start going into those careers. Like, what would you say to a youth who is considering what their future is going to be like and they're not sure?
So I would say like do what you have a passion for, because like when you're in school and things get tough, your passion will drive you to what, like, to keep going, right? And like most importantly, just like don't give up. Like if you want to do technical, like trying to get more youth in the technical fields is so important, but then also trying to make sure that they're staying. So if they think they're not supported, we're here for you. And then also trying to keep that drive up, because like personally, I was like, when I was in college, I wanted to drop out like my second year, and then I just continued it because I just didn't want to give up. And then when I went to university, I didn't think I was smart enough to go to university. So my first semester, I just wanted to give up. But then if I gave up, I wouldn't be here where I am today. So it's just making sure that they're going into the career, whatever it may be, that they're really passionate about it. And that if they want to come into architecture, just like anyone can reach out to me, just let me know. And then, because we all know of each other. So wherever it may be, we're all here to help, like, because we're all such a small family and we're all here to help.
Yeah, definitely. Can you speak a little bit more about your challenges in school? Because I feel like a lot of youth can feel isolated, especially First Nations youth, if they have to leave their home community and live somewhere super far away from their family. Like the challenges are going to be so much different and greater than any other kind of youth in Canada. So what were some of your challenges and how did you kind of overcome those?
So definitely my challenge in college was like, because I went to Toronto, I went to Humber College for architectural technician. So it's like being so far away from family and not having any family there. I really didn't have, I had the support system, but it was always over the phone.
Right.
So I think just reaching out to the universities or colleges to see if they have Indigenous program, because usually a lot of colleges or universities will have them. So all the Indigenous people who are studying there can all get together. And then, but I think it was, for me, I didn't know if I wanted to be there, because like I was just, my mind was somewhere else, because I would think I was like I was definitely struggling a bit just being in the big city, because I come from a small town, like I'm not a city person. But then I just kind of like wanted to finish it, didn't really give up.
What was like the time when you kind of said you wanted to give up, but you just like kept going?
I think it was just like self-motivation. Just like, okay, let me just finish it, because at least I can get a certificate. But then I just ended up really liking it and continuing on to university. But even university, I found I was like really struggling. And then what really motivated me was like I had that support system. So my first studio prof actually would always come up to me and then just like motivate me and just be like, okay, you're doing well. Right. And then it was, then I just continued it. And then actually learning about Indigenous architecture really helped me understand that I should actually be like, I need to be there and I need to do this. And then like that, my passion actually grew even more for architecture, because I'm like now able to help my own community.
Right. I think that's an important thing that you just mentioned, is like helping and giving back to your own community, because like we just, we need so many more youth to like kind of go to school, but then come back to community to help, because I think that is so important. I feel like a lot of people, the people who do go to school and pursue a post-secondary degree, like end up not coming back necessarily to the community.
Yeah, so that's because my community is like a Moose Cree, so I'm from Moose Factory, but I know I probably won't end up going back there. But in my field, we can actually design buildings for up north and go back there as like trips. And then I'm kind of excited for that, because like if I get a job up there, I can go back and see my family.
Right.
So it's like it's hard. I find it's hard because like I can't personally go back to either Moose Factory or Wawa, because my field is like I need to be in a city.
Right.
But then we can also help them from where we are in the city, because we can work with those communities like all over Northern
I think especially
Ontario.
like post-COVID times, I think people will be a lot more used to that remote working, and like I think you can definitely have a base, not necessarily where you are going to be, doing your work, right? So that's really cool. Dean, I just wanted to check in with you to see if we have any questions on Facebook. I think it's because I did not mention that people could ask questions. Usually I mention that right at the beginning, and I totally forgot to mention that today.
That's okay.
But just to like wrap up, one of the things that we already kind of discussed on the phone last time we talked was OFNTSC, through our Technical Youth Career Outreach Project, for this next year, what we have proposed is to actually start a youth mentorship kind of program. So Bohdana, I know you said you were really interested in that, and that's something that you're very passionate about. And I was curious if you are already doing work like through your school or through anything else to try to help out with youth.
Yeah, no, not at the moment, because I think because of COVID, I was finishing up work and I'm going back to school now. So I would really love to get involved, just like making sure that the youth have questions. Like if you guys have any questions, let me know, or let you know to let me know, and then I can answer them if needed. And then if like the youth are more curious, I could probably answer any of their questions as well.
Yeah, because that's one of the things we are hoping to set up and establish is like through our TICOP project, we haven't really started to track the impact of it. And this year we really want to start to see like, okay, is the work that we're doing actually, helping inform First Nations youth about these careers? Like, are they choosing to go into these careers after, they meet with us, and just kind of doing follow-up, not necessarily like, you know, dictating they have to do that, because like
Yeah.
you said, they should do whatever they're passionate about, but just giving them the information, because I feel like these careers are not really promoted as being like desirable sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
because there's a kind of a stereotype around, you know, being a nerd if you like science or math and those sorts of things. So I feel like people come, so sometimes even if they really like it, they kind of shy away from that because of like the stereotype around it, right?
Yeah. So I feel like that is also really hard, especially as like a younger youth trying to go in a field that you feel uncomfortable. So I would say just kind of just do it, because like if you're really passionate about it, you will succeed.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I think that's it for my questions. Did you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think I got it all covered.
Thank you again so much for talking to us today. OFNTSC is really proud to have you as one of our recipients, and we cannot wait to see the work that you do in the future. And we will definitely be staying in touch if you're open to that, to kind of,
Yeah.
you know, share your success in the future and down the line. So again, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you for the award, and thank you for everything.
Awesome. It's been really great chatting with you, and we will hopefully be, you know, showcasing some of the other award recipients as well. So,
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Bye.
okay, bye.